evening, everybody. Public Act 100-0640 amends the Open Meetings Act to expressly authorize public bodies to meet remotely in certain circumstances without the otherwise required quorum present at the meeting place. This law requires that the head of the public body determine that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent because of the disaster. And so, Andrew, as the meeting chair, I'll ask you to make that determination when the meeting has come to order. At least one member of the public body or the chief administrative officer or the chief legal officer must be physically present at the meeting place unless it isn't feasible because of the disaster. So I'm here at the library this evening. We should do a roll call vote after the meeting is called to order. All votes will be by roll call. As with all open meetings, we provide space for public comments in accordance with the law. For the purposes of this virtual meeting, we've asked for the public to submit their comments by email or voice message, and I will read them aloud at the appropriate time. This meeting will be recorded and archived and available on the library's website for 30 days and will be archived in our administrative offices thereafter. All right, all yours, Andrew.
All right. I'd like to call this meeting of the Aurora Public Library District Board of Directors to order at 6:01 p.m. All right. The Aurora Public Library Board of Directors finds an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent at this time because of the ongoing public health emergency and believes it is in the library's best interest to hold a virtual meeting to perform our essential business. All right, Melinda, will you please call the roll?
Sure. Dee Basili.
Present.
Jeff Butler.
Here.
Joe Philippek.
Here.
Melinda Riddick here. John Savage.
Yes. Here.
Eva Serrano.
Here.
Andrew Smith.
Here. All right, we have a quorum. Michaela, at this time, are there any changes to our agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
Okay, moving along. Are there any changes to the minutes of December 16th, 2020 Board of Directors meeting? All right, there being no changes, may I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the December 16th, 2020 meeting of the Board of Directors?
Dee Basili, I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
This
Melinda
is Joe.
Riddick.
I'll second.
Okay, I think Joe beat you on that one. Thank you. Melinda, please call the roll.
Dee Basili.
Yes.
Jeff Butler.
Yes.
Joe Philippek.
Yes.
Melinda Riddick, yes. John Savage.
Yes.
Eva Serrano.
Yes.
Andrew Smith.
Yes. All right. Motion carries. Moving right along to the director's report. Michaela.
Thank you. So I'll keep it brief tonight because, as is usual lately, we have a per capita grant requirement on the agenda, and that's going to take a few minutes. First thing, we've been looking at some usage numbers here lately, and we do have a little bit of good news. After many months of running it at much below capacity in almost every way, we registered 1,200 new resident card holders in 2020. So typically our numbers there are pretty stable as people come and go. You know, some people join up, some people leave. But as we make registration, especially online registration, more streamlined, we expect to see those numbers continue to increase. And just for context, we have roughly 108,000 resident card holders. So the increase that we saw was not people using our library because their library was closed, or no, these are residents. So that's great. Similarly, we also in December had 1,054 computer related questions, and in November we had 971. And again, for context, usually December is a lot slower than November because of the holidays, days we're closed a couple of days, things like that. So it does seem like we're seeing a little bit of a thaw in these numbers. Finally, I'll just mention that you guys have probably all noticed some larger scale events and programs with an EDI focus lately, and we have talked about this in previous meetings. We're developing the partnership that we formed with some area libraries to put on the Dr. Kendi event And I think you'll start seeing more on that in the year to come. For instance, in February, we are screening The Long Shadow, which is a documentary about the historical roots of structural racism. So that is going to be screened for a week for February 19th through 26th. You watch it at your convenience. And then there's an interview with the director on the 24th. Natalie Moore of WBEZ is interviewing Dr. Eve Ewing, a professor of educational sociology, whose research focuses on social inequality on March 1st. And that's another big partner program with some neighbor libraries. So some good stuff going on there, and partnerships that wouldn't have happened if we were doing programs in-house, because none of these libraries are particularly close by. We don't really share an audience, except online, we all share an audience. And that's all I have tonight.
Michaela, what was the date of the Long Shadow movie you said?
The 19th through the 26th.
Okay, great, of February.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Michaela, when we partner with these libraries and offer a program that would be stretching across a number of different communities, like, do we have to pay additional like Zoom license to allow for the greater number of people, or is it just being like streamed on YouTube so as many people like, how does that work?
So one of the libraries purchased a large Zoom license, a 5,000 person license, and it lasts for a year, or for 6 months maybe. I can't remember exactly what they did. And so we're trying to fit in a few of those big programs while it lasts.
Sure.
Zoom hasn't been too strict about those limits. Our last program had 5,600 people, even though our limit was 5,000. Joe, as affiliate Rails, you might know that this group is putting the arm on Rails to help us fund a large scale Zoom license, and something that we can have for a little longer time period, so we can continue to work together. So the directors are meeting of all these different libraries. The programmers are meeting separately. It seems like it's working really well for everybody. There are some logistical things to work out, as you say, like Zoom licenses and things like that. We did talk about YouTube. These presenters don't want their programs out there on YouTube forever for everyone to see, and they like the more controlled environment of a Zoom program. So that's why we're doing that.
Thank you.
All right, so we actually have two committee reports. The first one is Building and Grounds Committee, and I believe, Michaela, you're going to discuss what was discussed at that meeting.
Right. So Building and Grounds met on January 18th to discuss an option for an all-electric generator for our new bookmobile at an additional cost to our original contract. So Heather Sturm, Jessica Contrera, and Mike Proct from the library staff all attended and presented and answered questions. This is a substantial upfront cost, over $50,000, but there should be significant longer-term benefits in customer comfort, as well as some maintenance and gasoline savings. This is a cost that the library can cover, and the library is asking that we cover this cost. We budgeted $45,000 in 2020 for a vehicle that we didn't purchase because of COVID, so we have it budgeted. The foundation has raised about a third of the original quoted cost of a new bookmobile, and their board met this week and approved a plan to raise the rest. So the committee recommended that the full board approve the purchase of the all-electric generator. The committee had some further questions, though, that we didn't have answers to in that moment. And I understand that Heather has some answers to some of those. And so Heather, if you want to go ahead with those.
Sure. So lots of good questions from the committee. One was about warranties related to this battery system. It's new to us, so it's good to know what the coverage is. The batteries themselves come with a 3-year warranty on both the batteries and the charger or the inverter that's installed with them. The solar panels will be new to us. They come with a 5-year warranty, and the vendor said they're durable. He sent me the data sheet on them. They're a flexible mesh fabric kind of solar panels. So it sounds like they're flexible and they're set up for commercial use. So they should not, I don't think we'll have too many issues. If we do have issues with the solar panel, they're quick to be replaced. They have quick connectors. So that's not a big deal. Jeff asked the size of a comparable generator. So if we were to go with a diesel generator instead of a battery system, I think that's what you meant, Jeff, right? They recommended a 14 kilowatt diesel generator. And the cost for that upfront would be just over $21,000. Right now, maintenance costs for our existing generator, which is a little bit smaller, but about the same size, is about $2,700 a year. Estimated fuel cost for a 14 kilowatt generator would be about $3,300 a year. So we could expect to spend that 20,000 plus upfront for that diesel generator, and then 5,000 and more dollars a year on maintenance and fuel. So over 10 years, when you look at potential lifespan of the battery system and the generator, I think we could see some cost savings. The battery system is one that they've used and installed in other large vehicles. They don't anticipate any issues. There is no scheduled maintenance. We might have to replace a battery, I suppose, but that does not sound like something that's common, that happens very often. So, over 10 years, when you put all of those costs together, a traditional generator would probably be about $80,000. And I figured 10 years because diesel generators don't last the life of the vehicle. They do have an upper end to their life. And after so many hours of use, they have to be replaced. And for us, that's been about 10 years or so, 10 to 12 years for a generator. The bookmobile, Jeff asked how much it's on the road. So the bookmobile goes out Mondays through Saturdays for about 45 weeks a year. So it's on the road about 270 days per year right now. 3 stops every weekday and 4 stops on Saturdays mean we do about 19 stops a week. That's over 850 stops per year. Each stop, open time per stop or day, they do about 3.5 to 4 hours of open time on weekdays and about 3 hours of open time on Saturdays. And then Jeff asked about keeping the bookmobile at a comfortable temperature for users. And we do run the generator, or we would run the battery system in between stops in order to run heating or cooling so that when we get to the stop, it's ready to go. It would work the same for either system. Jeff, I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Well, I thought that you couldn't run the generator while you're going from stop to stop, but.
Yeah, I misunderstood it myself. So Mike set me straight. And yes, we do run that generator, or the battery system can be run in between stops so that it's ready to go.
Okay, then that's the point is that it could warm up in a hurry while it's on the road. And so, yes. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Jeff also asked if 6 hours of battery life is enough. We asked them to size the system for 6 hours because we estimate that's how much time we're on the road and at stops on average per day. And so they sized it that way because we asked for that. If we decide that we needed more time, we could add a battery to the system. So it's flexible that way too.
Okay.
Let's see. Estimating annual usage of the generator in hours and then related costs. We covered that a little bit. We usually do about 1,200 to 1,300 hours of generator use during the year. The current generator, which is a little bit smaller than the one they specified, uses about 0.65 gallons of diesel fuel per hour. Diesel fuel costs vary, of course, through the year. So if we assume that it's $2.69 a gallon, that's about $22.50 a year for diesel costs. And then, like I said, maintenance, we're running about $2,700 a year right now on maintenance for the generator. We've also had repairs for the generator, which have also been about $2,700. So right now, our generator that we currently have is costing us about $7,500 a year to keep running. Jeff, you asked a little bit about time to recharge that hybrid system, how long it would take to charge the batteries. I don't have that information yet. I'm not sure that they know how to calculate that just yet because we haven't finished the final design of the system. But I can ask them if you'd still like me to pursue that, we can get that information.
But the intent is that at the end of the day, we bring it back, plug it in, and it'd be ready to go by the next morning. Is that-
Yes,
Okay.
that would, yeah, that's the plan. I did find out, Mary looked up for us, we pay 12.99 cents per kilowatt hour, right, Mary?
That is correct.
Which seems like a bargain, I guess.
Through comment, yeah.
So Jeff also asked, it looks like we decided to go without that slide out, and yes, we did. We discussed that a lot. We went and looked at the outreach staff looked at their school stops, and not all of those stops allow for that slide out to be deployed because the space just isn't there. When the slide out is not put out, it actually leaves a 3-inch like step inside the vehicle, kind of a half height step, because that floor overlays the interior floor. And once we thought about how that would work and traffic flowed through the vehicle, we didn't want students or, you know, adults tripping on that. So we think with the general larger floor plan of the new bookmobile, we can still have that flexible space and do some creative space use and still have enough room for what we need to do.
That would also hurt accessibility for a wheelchair if we had a little step there. So, okay.
Right. You know, we do attend or we stop at some of our senior living centers, and I'm not sure that all of them have enough room either for sliding out that extra space.
Okay, good.
And then as for the carts, we thought about that too a little bit more and decided we'll wait and see what the end configuration is for the bookmobile and how many carts we end up needing. We haven't finished that process for the interior, and we can order carts whenever we need to from that vendor. So once we have that interior configuration figured out and know exactly what we've got, then we can think about getting those carts. But right now it seems kind of preemptive. And I think that was it, Jeff, right?
Good. Well, thank you. Very complete. So basically, we will have a payback on this between the savings we get from not spending money on diesel fuel and maintenance and the costs versus the generator set, which is the upfront cost. So it may not be a big positive, but at least we do get our money back eventually.
Right.
It sounds like so. And we can claim that it is a greener solution. So that's a very big positive. So that's good.
I think the increase in comfort, it will be a big plus, especially as time goes on. You know, it's electric, you know, it'll be silent, no fumes, no risk of fumes, you know, so I think that'll be really good.
Good. Well, thank you for all that research. That's really good. Thank you.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, I don't know, where will this vehicle be parked overnight?
So we have an agreement right now with our partners at the Park District. We are able to park our bookmobile in one of their large vehicle, I want to call it a barn. I'm sure that's probably not what I should call it, but it's over near their main offices. And they've been great to work with and let us park there and plug in. They have the appropriate, you know, facility for us. Our new bookmobile would fit in there. It's a very large bookmobile, so that was a consideration, but we've got room. So we'll be able to move forward with that.
All right, and we will vote on that further down in the agenda. All right, Jeff, I think you're gonna speak on the strategic plan ad hoc committee.
I am. Let me get my carefully prepared notes that Michaela helped me with. So we had a strategic plan committee on January 22nd, and we discussed the draft of the one-year strategic plan that was sent to you. And then Michaela sent a second email with the updates of it. It includes the EDI pillar that we've discussed in December, and it's an important part of what we want to make sure we get done in 2021 or really work on through 2021. Two of the pillars feed your imagination and express creativity, we've brought together under a single pillar. So we wanted to maintain the focus of those, but often those two were confused. And so we put them together so that we would simplify our whole plan. So we made that happen. The strategic planning team decided that we would make this a one-year plan instead of looking out for multiple years because of everything being up in the air with the COVID situation, and we're just trying to get through 2021 with this plan and to make it happen. We also have the new board coming on in the middle of the year, so it would be an opportunity for them to speak to the future strategic plan going into 2022. So that would be important to make that happen. We did ask for a couple of changes. One was they were highlighted in the email that you received. And so the committee recommended that we approve the one-page strategic plan as documented in the email. Are there any questions? And Michaela, did I miss anything that was important?
Got it.
Okay, good.
So the document I'm reading is called Strategic Plan 2021 Final. Is that the correct version?
So Eva, there was one in your packet, and then I emailed one.
Yes, okay, the one that you
Right.
emailed is what I'm looking at.
Right.
And so the goals in the bold print represent changes?
Right.
Okay,
Exactly.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
You know, I like the fact that we're setting it out a year. I know typically we like to maybe do a 3-year strategic update, but I think it's a little difficult to kind of know what's going to happen next year and the year after. So I think it's good that we're doing a 1 year. I think it's very reactive to the situation we experienced in 2020 and trying to be a little bit more proactive for 2021. So I think that's good. You know, I think 3 years or 5 years is good to do, so we have time to accomplish those goals. But based on what we want to accomplish, I think we can get it done in the next year. You know, I know we're gonna have some help from some other people, and I think with the space that we have, we'll be able to get it done. So I definitely think it's a great idea.
Good.
I really like, if I may just add something, you know, I like all the pillars, but number 3, I think is, you know, our way of being responsive, being relevant, being on top of the issues that our community is facing. So, you know, good job. I think number 3 is really great.
Yeah, it's a real good one.
Thank you.
All right, no further questions for Jeff or staff? All right, at this point, Michaela, do we have any public comments?
I think I had a second part of this.
Oh,
Andrew.
my bad, sorry.
Sorry about that. First of all, the one other thing I'd like to say about the strategic plan is, Michaela, thank you and thank all the staff that have put this together. So we really do appreciate the work. We approve it and comment on it, but you guys do all the work. So we really do thank you for that.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
The second part of this is we also discussed having an EDI consultant, and we're to work through the EDI process, and that's part of this plan we wanted to do. Miriam talked through what we did. We've had proposals from 9, or we asked for proposals from 9 consultants. We got down and actually she had interviews with 3 of them and made the recommendation for the RGW Consulting, which is, I forgot, Rashida Washington, is it? It's a lady out of Oak Park. It is a big expense. It's almost $50,000, but we think that she will serve us well and be able to help us through the process, the EDI process. And there are explicit deliverables in her proposal that we're going to the team to and hold her to. And so we think that if it'll be money well spent if we accomplish those deliverables. Michaela also mentioned that as Kathy's going away gift to us, she found $35,000 in money from renegotiating or finding a new insurance carrier. So we got $35,000 that was a magic money that came to us from Kathy's hard work. So we really appreciate it. So it's kind of apples and oranges, but we do have money that's coming in for us. And again, I'll repeat, if we can make this happen, when it happens, it'll be very worthwhile to us. And this RGW Consulting has worked with Oak Park and Skokie Libraries, and they both gave great recommendations for her, and both of them are considered very progressive in the EDI space. So we as a committee recommend that we approve the hiring of RGW Consulting in the amount of not to exceed $50,000. So Michaela or Miriam, do you have more to add?
I think you got it. You think so, Miriam? Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
Good.
I have a question with this consulting group, RGW. Is that for a year, or how long would the terms be?
It is for a year. Well, Michaela and Miriam was on mute, but it is for a year.
Miriam, I don't know if you want to add anything there.
Just a year, and it does outline, the consultant's proposal does outline some key accomplishments that she'd like to accomplish, including training, et cetera, during that 1 year time frame.
Training, policy review, collection audit, program audit, there's a lot in it, actually, I thought, for a year.
And did the Skokie and Oak Park libraries, do they use RGW in the same fashion that we are?
Correct. And also Glen Ellen was another one that was added into our references.
Okay.
And which of those cities that RGW has worked in, which one is almost 50% Hispanic?
I'll speak to that a little bit. We none of them are almost 50% Hispanic. However, Oak Park is more diverse in the traditional Midwestern way, in that it has a large African American population. Skokie is was until pretty recently the most diverse community in the United States, aside from Queens. They have something like 78 languages spoken in the public schools. And so in some ways, I mean, every community has a different challenge. And one of the things that I liked about her, and Miriam came to me with this recommendation, but one of the things I liked was how she had worked with communities that were so different, and her facility with managing those differences, each from the other. Because Glen Ellen is a predominantly white community in the western suburbs. So,
But Miriam, we asked that question in a similar question to what Eva just asked in the committee meeting, saying Aurora is different. It's not just a Black issue, it's a diversity issue with many different cultures and a large Hispanic population here in Aurora. And you feel comfortable that we'll be able to take care of that diversity, and especially the Hispanic community?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that when I had my interview with her, essentially, she highlighted on what her practice was with inclusiveness, going beyond just race, but talking about language barriers, education, et cetera. And that really came out in comparison to the other consultants that we looked at. So looking at inclusion and training across the board, not just regarding race.
I have a question. how are we tracking what it is? I mean, she has certain things that she's going to perform and that the library is going to be benefiting from. But how are we going to know that those things that she is providing works? What, in the
So one of
results?
the,
I mean,
yeah, so
another
one of
question,
the,
I guess, that ties
Yep.
with that, you said she's going to be training. Okay, do we have like a program, train the trainer, that once she's gone, these, ideas and new learnings will be taught to the, staff to continue that?
Great question. So the first thing from her proposal that she would do as a stage 0 essentially is that she wants to do community outreach. So go out into the community and get a feel as to what is the need that the community wants from the library. So, getting that firsthand experience about the needs from the community and applying the assessment into her analysis and what we as a library can do to be targeting those needs. Regarding the training, that's another thing that really appealed to us about her, is that in comparison to other consultants, she was providing training to different leadership, or to the different leadership, not just here's a staff training and it's for everyone and it's virtual. Like, she's making sure that it's tailored to that leadership level, whether it's a staff member on a front desk or a manager learning how to mediate a conflict between staff and or public. So that training is making sure that it is adaptable to that leadership level.
Mm.
And I think as far as the train the trainer and the keeping it going, I think that's going to be on us to some extent.
Mm.
And we're committed, and you guys are committed. So that I feel confident in that. It's a priority, and we know it is. We wrote it into the strategic plan, and there's no doubt in my mind that this is going to be part of our work for a long time.
And when you talk about her organization going out and meeting people in the community, does that mean that she has Spanish-speaking staff who would do that? Does she herself speak Spanish?
I'm sure we would help facilitate that piece.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you that.
I'm sure we would help facilitate that piece and making sure that she has translation or items translated, whether it's in conversations and or surveys that she might be putting out.
Your time, maybe our staff time would be dedicated to doing that. The 50,000 would not cover that Spanish language. Mhm.
Is she a one-person business or does she have a staff?
It's my belief it's just her.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, just what I've learned about working and living in Aurora these last, 16, 17 years, there are many strengths to build upon. And I have seen in other environments where consultants will come in and only point to the negatives and only want to challenge the existing groups on what might be perceived as negative. So, I want to respect and be grateful for the work that's been done and reading through this, meeting with people, talking with people. So I absolutely respect that. But when it comes to diversity training, and this is when I used to work in Chicago and had some other experiences, because it can be emotions can get so high, so many feelings can be involved. I hope that we're mindful that there's there's a lot of good to build on. There's a lot of room for improvement. But there's a lot of good to build on across communities, our African American, our white community, East Asian, our Latino, Hispanic community. So, I would ask that we keep that in mind. And then the other thing is we've got a significant share of our community that's Spanish speaking. So if Miriam, if you're the one who's helping her have these conversations, you know, I don't know, does she discount her 50,000 a little bit? I don't understand that, you know?
You know, Miriam's not our only Spanish speaker.
Yeah.
She's the only Spanish speaker here, so that's fair enough. But I do think that we will have staff at some of these community conversations, whether or not to speak Spanish or any other language. You know, we'll want to hear. When I've worked with other consultants, you know, sometimes your role as a staff person is to be there to take notes or to record or something like that. So we will be investing significant staff time in this. And, you know, Miriam, maybe it's a fair question to ask her if she has someone that she works with regularly that's part of this process with her who speaks Spanish. When we did our 3-year strategic plan, we hired Lynn Elam. And Eva, you remember this, do you? She had a Spanish speaking partner, and that was one of the reasons that that might've been right before your time. Yeah, so Miriam, that's a fair question to ask her.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And
basically this contract, I'm sorry, one more question. So this proposal helps us achieve the goals in pillar number 1. Is that the way it's connected?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So I would, and I think we talked about this a little bit, that this pillar really extends to all pillars and really reaches every single element of our service. So when we talk about measuring impact, you know, I can see things like a collection audit where we look at our collection of materials, books, material, you know, print, and in terms of how diversity is reflected, we look at our hiring practices, our workforce, the policy audits that she'll be involved with. And I know you mentioned this, Michaela, and it's my experience too, to have that sort of outside voice, someone from outside the organization that can bring in their expertise and that set of eyes from outside, I think is really, really valuable. And if, you know, the board obviously is committed to this, and with it being a 1-year contract, while she is to work with us for a year, the idea is that it sets us up to be sustainable in this area, to where whether we call it train the trainer, it's going to empower staff to be able to continue this work and really just make it part of what day-to-day life is at the library and what we value at the library.
I was just going to piggyback off what Joe said real quick. Eva, you had mentioned that, you know, that emotions can run high.
You're breaking up.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry.
We lost you, Tom.
Um,
There we go. Tom, you're on mute now.
okay, I don't know how much you heard. I have unstable Wi-Fi, so I'm trying to.
All right. I will say one thing. I appreciate Eva's comments regarding the acknowledging where we've come from, and I agree that overall we want to point to the positive aspects of what we're trying to do, and I like that. I think that needs to be relayed to the consultant, that as part of what we're doing, we want to make sure that, yeah, there are things that need to be improved, a lot of things, but let's look at the positive things that have happened and build upon that. And I think if we come from a positive foundation to build up on it, it's a lot better than saying, here's the building, let's tear it down and try to rebuild it. And I think that, Eva, I think that's a very important thing to look at, is we're not trying to tear things down, we're trying to build them up. And I think that's a very important thing we want to stress to the consultant, is the idea of let's not tear it down, let's build up with what we have. We all acknowledge there are issues and there are faults and there are defects in how it's going, but let's go this way, let's not go this way and then go this way. And I think that's important, and I think it will help maybe some of the emotions, which we do want some emotion because it's a tough topic. But I really agree with what you said. I think that's important to relay to our consultant. All right, unless Tom can get back on, I think, are we ready to move on to public comment? All right, Michaela, I think you're on mute too. There we go. We're ready? Okay, were there any public comments?
There were no public comments.
Okay. All right, so next is new business. Were there any questions, Mary, on the December/January bills?
We do have questions on the bills, and we decided to take a sort of it takes a village approach rather than socket it all to Mary on her first day. So a few of us are going to answer some of these questions. So Heather has volunteered to take a few of the questions. If you want to go first, Heather.
Yep. Remind me, I know one was Eola Lights.
Yep, Eola Lights.
So when we started curbside service at Eola, it was still summer and, you know, sunny until like 9 at night. And then we got into September and it got a little darker, but they had okay parking lot lighting, and curbside kept going. And the branch manager said, you know what, we're not going to be able to continue curbside without additional lighting. So there was no overhead lighting along that long pathway from that west door out to where we have curbside parking spots. So I worked with Jeff. He got us some quotes, and I talked to the park district, and they will help with maintaining that whole, you know, walkway and making sure that the lights are in working order. But they really didn't ever have any intention of adding lighting to those walkways. They've got 2 of them over there. So we went ahead and paid to install the lighting so that our staff could continue to offer curbside services through the winter.
And knowing too that, you know, curbside is here to stay. We're going to keep doing this after COVID. There's always going to be people that would just rather not make the trip in. They got a car full of little kids, whatever the deal is.
Right. And the park district has been great too about letting us take over those spots. Parking, as you know, at Eola is in high demand, especially those spaces sometimes as people pull in to drop off for preschool and for other events. So, you know, that's been really helpful to be able to use that entrance and those parking spots. So overall, it's been good.
Yep. All right, we gave Tom a question, and but I know the answer, so we're okay. So Jeff asked, there was an expenditure for $10,000 for creative virtual projects, and then a $1,500 charge for Natalie Moore. And this is for the e-viewing program. And so what's happening here is that a bunch of libraries are clubbing together on this program. We're paying the upfront costs and then we're invoicing them. So we're expecting to get about $9,000 back. So even so, it's more than we would normally pay for one program, but with a virtual program, we can expect a lot more people to attend than we could if we were doing it in our large meeting room here. So we think it's going to be great. So that's the answer to that question, Jeff. Okay. And we also had an expenditure for a drone license. And so this is part of a programming kit that a technology kit that a few of the expenditures have been dribbling in over the past couple of months. And so our programmers have ideas about how they can do some overhead recordings and things like that to help make the virtual programming more interesting. So that's what that's about. Jeff mentioned that we used a drone that flew around the old main when we were closing it, when we said goodbye. We won't be doing that again, but you know, there should be some fun stuff to do with that.
Good, thank you.
Who's going to be the drone pilot? I think Tom's volunteering. I can see him
Tom's
right
doing
now.
it, that's right.
I'm thinking delivery of holds via drone.
There you
like,
go.
there's some opportunity.
Collection of fees, you know.
There you go. Show up the drone on your doorstep. So but you know, like curbside, we know virtual programming is here to stay. So, you know, we wanted to purchase some tech to help us support that, make things a little more interesting. And I think the next few questions are for Mary.
Oh, I'm up. Yep, Jeff, you had asked about Olson Roofing. It was just for $512. That was for Eola. That was a couple leaks in one of the skylights.
Okay.
So, just kind of a repair type of thing for that. They called it a flashing defect.
Okay.
The next one is the bookmobile. This was back, the repair was done on December 11th. So while the bookmobile was still in service. And they had an issue with the generator. It was shutting down and overheating. So yeah.
Very appropriate for our other discussions.
Right, exactly. Antifreeze, some water temp things. And then the last one was TJ Service. That was for $1,500. That was for on the west side of River Street of Santori. The inner sliding door wasn't working. So they had to put a new motor and encoder in that.
Okay, thank you. So it just,
What's that?
it just failed. It wasn't somebody ran into it or anything. It just,
It wasn't. It was just, yeah, it was, I think it happened pretty quickly, but no one ran into it.
okay, all right, thank you.
Mhm.
We had, I think, just one last question about
Okay.
the expenditure for the signs, a $3,200 expense for Aurora Sign Company. So Kathy mentioned this project in a meeting last fall, I think. The Richard and Gina Santori Library of Aurora signage at both the east and the west entrances here at Santori experienced a partial failure of the lights. They had to be taken down so the lights could be repaired and rebuilt. The signs were not designed in such a way you could replace the lights while the signs were still up. So this is the last of that. I think this is the last expenditure we're going to see related to that.
Okay, thank you.
And I think those were all the questions on the bills.
Thank you.
All right, with that, can I have a motion and a second to approve the monthly bills in the amount of $1,302,023.90?
Motion to approve.
This is Dee. I'll second that.
Thank you. Melinda, please call the roll.
You're on mute, Melinda.
Sorry. D. Basili,
Yes.
Jeff Butler,
Yes.
Joe Philippek,
Yes.
Melinda Riddick, yes. John Savage,
Yes.
Eva Serrano,
Yes.
Andrew Smith.
Yes. All right, motion carries. All right, next is the per capita grant requirement. Tom, are you able to handle this?
I think we might have to defer this till next month. I know you guys are super disappointed, so try to, contain yourselves. We'll do it next time.
Okay, perfect. Yep. So we will table that to February's meeting to discuss the per capita grant requirement. Excellent. All right. Next is the 2020-2021 finance update. And Mary, I think this is for you.
Let me unmute myself. This is me. So in your packet, and I'll share the screen in a minute, I was trying to figure out what kind of financial information I could give you guys as kind of a summary, enough to give you a picture of how the library is doing financially, instead of looking through 30 pages of a report. I wanted to kind of give you a snapshot. So we'll talk about this in just a few minutes, but I thought if I was a board member, here's what I would want to know. I would want to know, like, how's the revenue coming in? How are our expenditures? What does our bank balance look like, or fund balance? And do we have enough money in the next 6 months, or our low point? Do we have enough cash to get through that? So that's how I started this. I'll get your feedback at the end to see, what you guys want. Oh, shoot, there we go. Can you see this? There we go. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, so I started out with revenue. So we budgeted 14.6 million. Through December 31st, we've received a little over 8 million in revenue. So about 55% of our total fiscal year budget for revenue. So looks good in that area. Second, I looked at expenses and I did it just by location. Santori has got all of our admin costs and our kind of central services. So we've not, with the new financial software, we'll break that out. But for now, that, is coming together. So in total, our budget was 13.2 million. I excluded the bond and interest payments. Those are below, but we should be able to budget almost exactly what those payments are. So excluding those 13.2 million through December 31st, 2020, we spent about, 5.1 million. So that's just 39% of the budget. But then you guys as a board said, sometime last year, we really want you guys to spend at the 2019 level. So that's where I took in the column calendar 2019, the actual dollars spent were 10.1 million. So as a percentage of what we've actually spent, the 5.1, it's about 51% of that. So overall, I think the expenses look really good. So we're a little bit over the 2019 levels. That's mostly due to personnel costs, the, payroll and benefits. So then the third thing I looked at were the fund balances. So as of December 31st, 10.3 million in our operating fund, that's our balance. As of December 31st, 2019, it was just 6.2 million. So we are $4 million over where we were a year ago, a 66% increase. So looks phenomenal to me in that aspect. And then the last thing I wanted to do was say, all right, our lowest cash month, typically, I just went back 3 years, is around May. And that makes sense because, we start receiving the first payments of the property tax revenue in June. So it makes sense that May is kind of a low cash month. So what I did was, I took the cash as of January 1st, I estimated revenue and expenses for January through May, and then estimated what the ending fund balance would be as of May 31st. So doing that, we've got a little over 7 million expected by May 31st. So of 2021. So that's a forecast. May 31st of 2020 had a little under 3 million. So a $4 million difference, kind of still what you're seeing in that fund balance. We've got about, a 4 million increase right now. It should be similar to that in the next 5 months. So that's what I did for that. The second page, I just broke out the expenses by location and just in some general categories, just so you can see like central services and Santori, the people costs, which is salaries, wages, IMRF, the payroll taxes, all of that. That is about 50% of our 2020-2021 budget, but it's more than our 2019 spending just because we did increase staff and due to the levy increase. So that kind of makes sense. But overall, it looks from my vantage point of being here just a month, I think these numbers look really strong to me. So what I wanted to talk to you guys about is what you want to see from me on a monthly basis. What kind of information are you looking at that I can give you a quick one-page kind of a financial dashboard or whatever you want to call it, and you can get, you know, you're comfortable that I know what's going on with the finances at the library. So that's my goal for this. So wanted to see what you guys thought.
I like that first page that you put up.
Okay.
Because I think it would be pretty easy to update that on a monthly basis.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that was very helpful. You know, knowing the fund balance, I think is always good to know.
Right.
The cash forecasting, that's been a topic that we've had to discuss, not necessarily recently, but in the last 2 or 3 years, there was concern.
Right.
And I think that is very helpful, especially to a new incoming board member to understand our cash position is helpful. But I think that first page, updating that is good. I don't know that I need the expenses necessarily so often, but,
Okay.
but I do like that first page a lot. I appreciate
Okay.
you putting that together.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You know, one thing, you know, maybe not on this specific report, but maybe something quarterly or every 6 months, maybe a looking forward report, you know, what we think for the next 1, 2, 3 years. Obviously, you know, looking at this, we see that we have some, you know, we're going to have some reserve.
Yep.
And as we kind of sync that up with capital projects in the future, I know we've got some big ticket items, particularly, you know, EOLA, you know, improvements and whatnot. I think that'll help give the board some direction as to, you know, what available funds that we project. Obviously, you know, things could change, but I think from a property tax perspective, we can be pretty conservative, and obviously from a expenditure perspective, I mean, we know we've got union contracts, so we can make some estimates. So I don't think it's something we need on a monthly basis, but I think as we start looking at, you know, future projects, you know, having that type of information will be helpful.
Okay, awesome. Yes, I definitely can do that.
Maybe to jump in on John's comment, it would be nice maybe on an annual basis to see our history of kind of trends of how much we spend on people, collection, the different categories.
Yep.
How has it changed year over year for years, and including a forecast of where we think it might be going a couple of years.
Right.
Good.
Awesome idea. It is so difficult to work with what I have right now, but I have been doing that type of thing. I mean, I just get from that City of Aurora software things that are printed and in a PDF, and we'll have our new financial software, you know, within 6 to 9 months, but I will do something like that before.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Anybody else have any ideas or suggestions for Mary?
Well, I assume we can send feedback to Michaela if we think of things after today, because I think I'd like a little time to look through those again and think about what else might be good. And then just understanding that there may be several new faces on the Zoom that may have some other input, especially as new board members, on what works for them. And the fact that we're a district now, not a municipal library. So there's a lot of moving parts, of course. But yeah, I appreciate this, Mary. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Now we are moving on to 3 separate approvals. These are the recommendations that came out of the Building and Grounds Committee and the Strategic Plan Ad Hoc Committee. All right, the first one, Michaela, can you introduce regarding the electric bookmobile generator?
We did discuss this in the committee report. So what we're asking the board to do tonight is to accept the committee's recommendation to for the expenditure for the all-electric bookmobile generator.
All right, and it will be not to exceed $53,235. All right, may I have a second and a motion? A motion and a second to approve the purchase of an all-electric generator for the new bookmobile in an amount not to exceed $53,235.
So move. This is Jeff.
I'll second that. This is Dee.
Thank you both. Melinda, please call the roll.
Unmute me, Linda.
Sorry, everyone. Dee Basili,
Yes.
Jeff Butler,
Yes.
Joe Philippek,
Yes.
Melinda Riddick, yes. John Savage,
Yes.
Eva Serrano,
Yes.
Andrew Smith.
Yes, motion carries. Next, I can take this one. It's for the 2021 strategic plan. I know Michaela and Jeff have discussed this. May I have a motion and a second that the board approve the 2021 strategic plan?
This is Joe. So moved.
Jeff, second.
Was that an official second by Joe?
Seconded? Okay.
Okay. All right, that works. Thank you, Dee.
Mhm.
All right, Melinda, please call the roll.
Dee Basili,
Yes.
Jeff Butler,
Yes.
Joe Philippek,
Yes.
Melinda Riddick, yes. John Savage,
Yes.
Eva Serrano,
Yes.
Andrew Smith.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you. Last one for approval is regarding the EDI consultant. May I have a motion and a second that the board approve the proposal and expenditure for RGW Consulting LLC in the amount of $48,400?
Make motion.
This is Jeff. I'll second.
Thank you. Melinda, please call the roll.
Dee Basili,
Yes.
Jeff Butler,
Yes.
Joe Philippek,
Yes.
Melinda Riddick, yes. John Savage,
Yes.
Eva Serrano.
Abstention? I abstain.
Okay. And Andrew Smith.
Yes. All right, motion carries. There being no further business before the board this evening, may I have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting at 7:03 p.m.
This is Dee Basili. I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Joe, I'll second.
Thank you. Melinda, please call the final roll.
Dee Basili,
Yes.
Jeff Butler,
Yes.
Joe Philippek,
Yes.
Melinda Riddick, yes. John Savage,
Yes.
Eva Serrano,
Yes.
Andrew Smith.
Yes. Thank you. This meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night. No problem, Tom.
Good
Thanks,
night.
everybody. Good
Night.
night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.